Let's talk about honing. To start off, I have a display of barber hones that we're going to discuss. Barber hones primarily are ceramic in nature and can run anywhere from a coarse in nature stone to a very, very fine stone. Most of these stones that you run across typically will tend to be more of the finer grit or grade of stones, and this was done because these stones were basically used to touch up a razor that was just beginning to get dull. Now, as you look around, you'll see quite a variety of these, and they run in various shapes and sizes. A lot of razor manufacturers actually had these stones produced for them with their names or logos on them. An example of that is the John Primble razor hone, and this particular hone actually came with instructions still on the box. The reason that these instructions are important for the barber hones is that, as I always say with all honing, less strokes are better. These barber hones and the instructions that go along with them demonstrate that. The instructions written here indicate that you should normally do no more than 4 or 5 strokes on the barber hone to bring back the edge and to ensure that you do not overhone the razor. Many people actually use these hones to restore razors and bring back edges on ones that go beyond simply refurbishing an edge that is starting to dull. These stones are meant to be used with either water or oil, and usually they will instruct you as to which would be the proper substance to use on them. An old barber once showed me that these stones can also be used with the actual shaving lather. The stroke, which we'll demonstrate in a little bit on a barber hone, is still to be used as an X pattern stroke. There are many hones like this that are still available today. There's a woman named Tilly who goes by Red Trader on eBay who purchased an entire stock or company that had these barber stones. Several examples of the stones that she sells are It's a Peach, Kimberly, Kimberly Special, and a Peaches and Cream stone. This particular stone is coarser on one side than the other. There's some controversy over whether or not these stones are just as good as some of the faster cutting abrasive type stones that are now on the market. I do not use these stones frequently in restoration work as the size is somewhat limited. As you can tell, these stones tend to be usually only 3/8 of an inch or so thick and are not that long and are not that wide. Typically 5 to 6 inches by 1.5 to 2 inches long. These stones typically tend to be from between 5 to 6 inches in length and 1.5 to 2 inches wide, normally running about 3/8 of an inch thick. Some of these old stones were actually utilized by barber schools when teaching barbers how to perform maintenance on straight razors. This particular stone came from the Kansas School of Barbering. One interesting thing about these hones is that they generally, as I said earlier, tend to be of finer grit. When I utilize these hones, I really am looking more towards the polish or the finish of the straight razor honing process when I use these. As I mentioned earlier, the barber hones can normally be used with either water, oil, and I would recommend a thin oil like a knife sharpening oil or even a sewing machine oil, or a shaving lather. This particular hone, I've already put a film of water on and I've placed it in the palm of my hand, which is normally the way that this is utilized. The way that you would hone the razor on it, and remember we're only talking 4 or 5 strokes, is to place the razor flat on the stone with the heel on the stone and the toe off of the stone. The stroke motion that you will do is to bring the razor to you across the stone, so that the toe of the razor is on the stone at the end of the stroke. You will then roll the razor on the spine, never on the edge, and again, as you go away, the heel of the razor is flat on the stone, and we push it in a manner so that the X pattern is there. We're coming diagonally across that stone, and at the end of the stroke, the toe is what remains on the stone. Again, roll on the spine, draw the razor to myself in a diagonal manner, push it away in a diagonal manner. Each motion back and forth is considered one stroke. Typically, this is the way you would refresh a razor on a barber hone using the 4 or 5 strokes. And remember, this is a razor that has already been properly honed but may just be using its edge. Many people in the old days actually had these hones at home and would refresh their own razors rather than taking them in to the barber for additional honing. As a recap, remember, only 4 or 5 strokes are all that's needed to restore or refresh a razor edge. There we go. Who wants to test this one? This is an example of a longer barber hone, which actually will give you more stroke when honing that razor or refinishing it. On this one, again, remember, it's the same 4 or 5 strokes, but I've got a much longer surface now to work with. This stone was also pre-treated with water, and you can tell the additional distance. That's giving me more polish than what I have on the shorter stone. One key to honing is to make sure that your razor is flat across the entire process and that you do not put any pressure on the blade other than the weight of the blade resting on the stone. Notice again the X pattern. In most instances, I will have the stone facing north and south and the blade actually facing east and west, which is what is considered a 90-degree angle. There are those people who do believe in barber hones for refurbishing razors. The one thing to recognize is that due to the nature of the barber stones and with them primarily being of a higher level of grit and very, very smooth, that process of refurbishing the razor can take significantly longer than what we have showed you with regard to refreshing the razor. As a tip for some of you who may not want to rest a little stone in your hand, another easy way of utilizing the stone is to take a piece of the rubberized shelf paper, cut it out, and simply rest it on your thigh. When you do that and set a stone on it, it will not slide back and forth. Keeps the pressure pretty consistent. And again, you're able to utilize the same stroke. When it comes to honing, I would always prefer to be on as most stable a surface as possible. Typically with a hone in my hand or a hone on my leg, I can never be assured of the stability that I would get working off of a tabletop. Barber hones are fairly prevalent and can be found on eBay. A very popular model of barber hone is a Francois out of Austria. These typically, along with all barber hones, can be purchased on eBay for a fairly nominal price. And anybody who gets into straight razors and straight razor restoration or even honing your own straight razors, I would highly recommend that you at least purchase 1 or 2 of these and hone with them so that you get used to them and you can understand what it feels like to take a step into the past and prepare your razor for your next shave.